in gaming, I think the way to convince more people brand side is to actually start reframing it as digital experiential instead of just gaming, because every sports team spends money on in-person fan zones. Whether you're creating experience on Roblox, essentially you're creating another digital fan zone for your global fans to congregate. That kind of helps bridge the gap in understanding.
Welcome back to Brands in Play, your podcast for everything immersive marketing. I'm Aida Andersson, head of commercial at Chartis.
And I'm Nick Hill, co-founder and chief innovation officer at Sawhorse. We've got a packed news rundown today. Roblox Q4 earnings are in. AI companies dominated the Super Bowl. Brands are moving away from building their own worlds and jumping into integrations. And Lil Wayne headlined a virtual halftime show inside Clash Royale.
That's right. And for our real-time review, I'll jump into QVerse Island, Qatar Airways custom Fortnite game that lets players explore a virtual version of Doha and its iconic landmarks, starting with Hamad International Airport.
And later, we'll be speaking with Joe Farren from Future Sports Co., a consultancy working with some of the biggest names in sports. We'll be unpacking how leagues, teams, and rights holders are rethinking fandom, how they show up inside of gaming and immersive platforms, and what the next generation of fan engagement actually looks like.
So if you're enjoying Brands in Play, make sure to give it a follow. Every week, we break down how brands, platforms, and creators operate inside gaming and immersive media. Let's get into it, Nick.
Let's go. Aida, what's up? It's episode number 2 for you.
I know. I'm so stoked. It was so much fun the last time. I cannot wait for, our guest today and to talk about the Super Bowl. That
Yeah,
just,
did you watch?
I did not watch it live, but I've seen snippets of it. Love what was going on there, I have to say.
Yeah.
Love the
Uh,
halftime performance.
you
What
didn't
did
mi-
you think?
you didn't miss anything. That game was total crap. It was very
Oh,
boring to watch. It was like not a fun, exciting game. It was a blowout. But Bad Bunny on the halftime show smashed it. That was pretty dope.
yeah. That was
And of
on
course,
another level.
the commercials. Did you see some of the commercials?
I love the commercials. I mean, I have some things I definitely want to talk to you about there and to our listeners, but they were great. Brands really stepped it up this year, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been my favorite part of the Super Bowl, but yeah, they definitely did not disappoint this year. I'm sure we'll jump into it. But another update that I think touches both of our companies is our release of the GOAT activation on Fortnite. GOAT is the new film by Sony Pictures. It's all about basketball and sort of like overcoming adversity and dreaming big. And it's just a really awesome movie. I got to see an advanced screening over the weekend. So I was
That's so sick.
definitely super impressed. I got to take my family. My 6-year-old son is like a huge basketball fan. So he loved it. I loved it. And it was awesome. But for this integration, yeah, we partnered with Chartis and Sawhorse, and we brought the GOAT IP into an integration into Minigame Box PvP, which is a game that you guys manage, right?
Yes, we co-own it with Berto and Dag, the
That's
creators.
right. And what was cool is that Berto, the creator, actually got to go to the premiere on the red carpet in LA on Friday night, where Seth Curry was there and all the other people who worked on the film. And so he got to kind of show up and flex as an influencer, which was pretty awesome.
I saw pictures. FOMO. Let's talk about FOMO for a second, being stuck in Sweden for stuff like that. Not great, but that
Yeah.
looked amazing. And I'm so stoked, have loved the numbers and everything we've seen so far. Feedback has been great too. Super, super exciting.
Yeah, this year is starting strong with entertainment IP, and there's only going to be more. Exciting times. Well, let's
Exciting
keep it
times.
moving. Should we go to the news?
Definitely. Let's go.
Let's go. All right, so this week in the news, so much stuff was going on. I feel like we're only really going to report on a fraction of it, unfortunately, due to time. But I think one of the most important stories, of course, was the Roblox Q4 earnings that came out. And just like last time, it was exceeding expectations. This platform keeps growing, keeps overperforming. It's like it's only good news from this platform. Every time a earning report comes out, I'm like, oh man, it can't top last time. I'm sure we're going to start to see a dip, but Q4 did not do that. There's a few things that I'll call out is the daily active user base is 144 million, and that's up 69% year over year, with a lot of growth that's happening outside of the US. Total engagement hours, 35 billion. That's up 88% year over year. And what's really interesting is the revenue is up 43%. Bookings are up by 63%, and free cash flow is up by 155%. But one of the most important stats that I was really interested by is that the 18 plus user segment is growing 50% year over year. And that group monetizes about 40% higher than all the other younger users on the platform. And there's a huge demand to make more aged up experiences. So for me, this really signals that the platform is aging up. It's becoming more of an entertainment platform, not just like a gaming platform for little kids. And these are the signals that are pointing to that. I don't know. What did you think about this earning report?
I mean, it's just like I was gonna use a word I never use. I'm gobsmacked, but I am. The number the numbers are insane. And I mean, I really want to echo what you just said about the 18 and over cohort there. We're seeing Roblox going from a pure gaming platform, if you will. It is a UGC platform, that's what we refer to it as, but it's gone from just gaming to becoming a social hangout space. And it's more and more becoming, what Instagram was and what TikTok was 10, 15 years ago, maybe 10
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, that is something I'm very interested in is like seeing devs push the envelope on the type of experiences that are being built. So not just capitalizing on the core loops that we know the user base wants, but experimenting and creating new types of experiences that are more attractive to a broader, older audience, which I think we're starting to see a little bit. And the last thing, I know we got to move on, but have to highlight the generative AI tool that they just announced and released in beta, I believe, which is the new 4D generation tool. Did you
Yeah.
see this?
Yeah, yeah, that's that's gonna have an impact on how
It's
things are created.
mind blowing. So it's a generative AI tool where you can just type in a 3D object that you want to see inside of a game, like a car, and it will show up in real time. But what's really unique and impressive about this is that it comes along with custom code and physics that are built into the thing you just built. So you can type it, you see it materialize in front of you, and then you can play it and drive it in real time, which is pretty mind blowing. And I feel like it's just an amazing opportunity for developers to start thinking about building games or experiences where all of your user base is building and contributing to what that game actually is. Because we don't design in that way right now, but I feel like this unlocks the ability for some really fresh, fun new designs.
For sure, for sure. And it's gonna speed things up a lot. We're
Yeah,
definitely gonna see things being created at a completely different pace.
yep,
It'll be
agreed.
interesting. Super
Tell us
interesting.
about the Super Bowl.
Right. So Super Bowl. Well, AI companies, they're now taking center stage at the Super Bowl, or that's what they did over the weekend. And they're no longer just advertising their products. They're kind of taking shots at each other. So I think one of the boldest moves came from Anthropic, the company behind the Claude chatbot. So
Claude.
in its first, yeah, Claude, but in its first ever Super Bowl commercial, they directly poked at their rival OpenAI and ChatGPT. So the ad shows an AI assistant in human form being helpful until it suddenly starts slipping into an awkward, product ads mode, ending with the line, ads are coming to AI, but not to Claude. So I think the message there is really clear. Anthropic is positioning Claude as a trust first and ad free alternative, arguing that, ads inside AI conversations could hurt the user experience, user trust. And it's really been one of the most high profile moments yet, I think, in the growing rivalry between major AI players. So, OpenAI, of course, responded really quickly to all of this, saying that if ads ever appear in ChatGPT, they'd be clearly labeled and non intrusive. So they were really pushing back on the idea that advertising automatically breaks trust. But it overall feels like a turning point. So AI companies, they aren't just, competing in regards to technology anymore. They're competing on values and business model and public
Yep.
trust. And over the weekend, um, they just did it on, the biggest advertising stage in the world. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. What are your thoughts on how they're, voicing this, so to
I have a
speak?
lot of thoughts. I think in general, everyone is terrified of AI. So whether they're saying it, I think everyone is feeling it. So like all of these massive AI companies are coming out trying to make these ads that appeal to humanity that we can connect with. So I think they're doing that. I will remain a bit skeptical because I think that every single one of these companies is going to have advertising built in. I think it's maybe Claude won't have it right now, but I think that like advertising and these brands are kind of a necessary evil when it comes to media in general. It's how we're able to have things for free and consume them and add value to our lives. So I think that ads are coming into all of this. The question is like, how do they show up? How transparent is it? Is it manipulative or is it additive? Um, and I think that there's a real opportunity to make it additive and not super obnoxious. So I'll say cautiously optimistic, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I think that sounds good. And I mean, I agree with you there. I don't think Claude will stay away from ads. That'll probably happen, within time, but we'll see what happens and what the effects of that will be. It's going to be really interesting. Yeah.
We'll watch it closely. But moving on to my next story, I thought this was really interesting. I know you track this space closely. I'm curious to get your point of view. But there's this sort of trend that we're seeing where brands are moving away from building an owned and operated experience from scratch. And they are instead doing an integration into experiences or games that are already established that have a user base. And this is all within kind of these UGC gaming platforms like Roblox and Fortnite and others. A really interesting article came out in GamesBeat by Alexander Lee, who's a good homie of ours. I think you know him as well. They pulled a ton of data from Geek's platform, and they found that in 2025 compared to 2024, that they saw a big shift where the amount of brands that were creating owned worlds decreased by 57%. And brands doing integrations increased by 14%. And I think what brands learned over these past couple years is that owned experiences, they definitely got a lot of headlines in the press. It was like, oh, this company came into Roblox and they made a world. A lot of buzz about that, which is valuable to brands. So they got the headlines, but they realized that it's expensive and challenging to build a really beautiful game from scratch. And then I think the real secret that almost no brands are thinking about is the live ops cost, which is the ongoing maintenance. Like once you have a game that's up there, that's great, but what are you changing? What are you updating so that users have a reason to come back? It's an ongoing bill. A lot of brands weren't ready for that. And then not only that, but it's like when you're starting from scratch, you have no built-in audience. So you have to pay money in marketing to bring people into your experience. All's to say that, these learnings kind of shifted brands' POV into wanting to do more integrations, partnering with existing games that have high traffic, that have a built-in audience, that are more connected with cultural relevance on these platforms and that are operated by creators. I mean, these creators that build these maps and these games, they're like the new influencers. They have big followings. So that shift is real. We're seeing it. And I feel like the only instance where that is not correct is when you're dealing with really high profile IP that the user base of these platforms already knows and loves. So one example is, for instance, like Universal's game How to Train Your Dragon, which was built by Sawhorse, has a huge audience that has been built. It's a persistent game. They've leaned into live ops. It's a partnership. It has like over 30 million visits more than the next sized branded game. And so that works, but it doesn't work for every brand. So this big shift is real. We're seeing it in real time. It's 2026. I think we're going to see less worlds. What do you think?
I mean, yes, is my short answer. And I love that you brought up How to Train Your Dragon. Kudos to you guys, by the way. It's amazing, visually
Thank you.
stunning, but also like it wasn't just about the launch. And that's the thing. When brands build their own worlds, there has been in the past, there have been so much focus on the launch. But the launch, misunderstand me correctly here when I say this, doesn't matter as much as what comes next. And it's the live ops, listening to the community feedback.
Yes.
What do they want to see? What do they want in there? And then also having those planned updates, getting that cadence going. It's just like releasing a podcast. You're releasing it on a weekly basis or maybe less or more, but you have those updates coming. And then,
Exactly.
you get comments from the viewers. What do you want to see? What do you want to listen to? It's exactly the same thing, but it's a different environment. And so I really do believe that some brands should have own spaces. And I think that that would work great for them. Look at, Amazon. They could
Yeah.
benefit off of doing something, tapping into what already works, you know, like live shopping for them. Bringing that into Roblox, for example, would be so cool. And you could have something that's live all the time, use creators, Roblox creators, tapping into them and so on. But you
But
would
it takes a
need
deep
that
strategy.
planned out. It does.
It
It
takes a
does. And you
deep
need to,
strategy and a commitment. And I think
yeah,
that a lot of brands look at this and they're like, "Oh yeah, our little game on Roblox. We're just going to make it and drop it. It's going to be great." It's like that
no,
just doesn't work. It needs
no,
to be a commitment. And I
yeah,
don't think a lot of them are ready for that yet.
no. And that's why it's so great with integrations, tapping into existing audiences where there's already, high foot traffic. You want to get those eyeballs at the end of the day. But
100%. What do you got?
anyways, should
Tell
we
us
get on
about
story
Lil
number
Wayne.
4? Yeah.
Yes. What
I
is
love how
Lil
you
Wayne? What
say
do you do?
Lil Wayne. I say Lil Wayne. Should I say
Yeah.
Little Wayne too,
Lil
maybe?
Wayne. Yes.
Lil
What do you
Wayne.
do?
So he headlined a virtual halftime show inside the mobile game Clash Royale by Supercell. Lil Wayne. He performed a special game-specific version of Amelie, blending his music with, Clash Royale's game or fantasy world, if you will. So obviously, the halftime show wasn't tied to a traditional broadcast, which I like. I really like that. Instead, it premiered across multiple time zones inside the Clash Royale mobile game. So it allowed players to watch what happened, during live matches without actually leaving the app or buying tickets. The event itself merged sports, gaming, and music culture during a big game week. And I also think that this topic is a perfect transition, if you will, into our next topic and guest who'll explore those worlds and
Yep.
how they're increasingly colliding a little later in the show. So yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because normally a lot of these sort of performer sort of music acts, they tend to go into Roblox and Fortnite. So I
At
thought it was,
Fortnite specifically, with all the
yeah,
live, yeah, we've seen
but
a lot lately in Roblox, but Fortnite
yeah,
used to own that. So this is super cool.
it's really cool. And then I think it's actually a little bit more challenging to do these partnerships with these big, mobile titles or AAA titles. It takes more lead time, more of a partnership, more of a licensing type of situation. But I mean, look at the size of Clash Royale. That is a massive game. Somewhere around 35 million monthly active users right there.
That's
So
huge.
yeah, definitely curious to know the performance and the sentiment. Did players enjoy that? Because I don't
Okay.
know how often they're changing content integrations like that, but I
No, and
wonder.
that's,
Yeah,
it's new to me too because I'm just like you're saying, you used to music appearances happening in definitely Fortnite. We've seen it a lot there. But then also, on Roblox now, we saw Bruno Mars,
yeah,
just a couple of weeks ago. It's going to be interesting to see if this starts happening within mobile games and other, spaces other than Roblox and Fortnite. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it did and how it performed and what the community feedback was.
yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep moving. I'm curious. I want to know about this activation for our real time review. So let's go
Yes.
to
Let's
the real
get
time
into things.
review.
So for this week's real time review, I will be diving into QVerse Island. It's a custom Fortnite map by Qatar Airways that lets players explore a virtual version of Doha and its iconic landmarks, starting with, again, Hamad International Airport. It's essentially a branded island where gaming meets travel. Nick, have you seen this at all? Have you jumped into it?
I haven't jumped into it, but I have seen some visuals. I mean, it looks
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's stunning, like hands down. Basically, players, after they've been at the airport, they move across the island and they explore different locations inspired by real places and attractions. And then along the way, they can complete mission-based challenges, uncover like elements, and interact with immersive environments. Like Sama, for example, who's a Qatar Airways digital cabin crew avatar. She helps direct players between missions and locations, and is also like a familiar character that appear across their other digital platforms. I think the main hook here, though, is the golden ticket challenge. So, at random times, once you're in the game, a golden ticket spawns somewhere on the island. And then players get an on screen alert showing the general area, but you only have a few minutes to find it before it moves again. And if you find the tickets, here's the thing: you take a screenshot with your character and then you post it on Instagram, Facebook, or X using the dedicated hashtag, and then you follow Qatar Airways on Instagram. That then enters you into a weekly draw to win real Qatar Airways business flight tickets. So that's
That's
pretty
pretty dope.
huge. That's
That's pretty dope.
pretty dope. Yeah. And the contest runs, I think, for 10 weeks. So it's gonna run throughout February until they take down the map.
And I
Um,
like that a little bit. Like it's such low for it's not that much friction. Like in the perfect world with this stuff, you just want to be able to click one button and be like, yeah, submit, I did it. But these platforms are walled gardens, so you can't really do that.
yeah.
But I do like the fact that it's like, yeah, everyone has a phone in their pocket. Just take a picture of the screen, and
Yeah.
then just go here. Um, it does cut out some friction, but it's not
Yeah.
frictionless.
But it also shows, again, bleeding into the other. I don't know if bleeding is the right word to use here, but it shows how, UGC platforms and then Instagram and TikTok, how it's all connected and
Yes.
how it can be connected.
Right.
So I think that's really, cool to see. So speaking about cool things, then I'll jump into, what's good about this map. And it's like you said, Nick, I mean, it's stunning. It's visually gorgeous, the map. But on top of that, I just love that Qatar Airways, they get it. Like UGC platforms like Fortnite and Roblox, where younger audiences are already spending their time, um, they want to market there. And it's, you know, the modern way to engage new audiences. They previously activated on Roblox too, so they know that they have to be in this space and they know what they're doing there. I love that, QVerse Island gives users a chance to explore Doha and the airline experiences. Um, and there's a there's a persistent day-night cycle within the game
Oh,
too,
that's
which is a
cool.
nice touch. Yeah, so you can watch the sunset over the city, see it light up at night and stuff like that. But what I love the most is the connection from digital to physical. So how they're blending virtual exploration with real world travel, inspiration, and rewards. So the fact that players can actually win real Qatar Airways tickets through the game is sick. Honestly, who wouldn't want that? I mean, it's something that we've seen it. We've seen the digital and the IRL connection happen before, but we haven't seen it a lot, have we? Not
Right.
I don't think on this level where you can actually bid. Like it's probably the best airline in the world. One of the best airlines in the world. So it's a pretty sick, reward to get if you do win.
It's huge. Yeah, and any marketing activation that's adding value to players' lives is awesome in my opinion. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to say there are some things that do leave room for improvement. So just like we talked about, when entering platforms like Fortnite or Roblox for a custom game, it's important to either have an IP that naturally will work on the platform or have a long-term plan. So
Hmm.
live updates and so on for discoverability, and then also to ensure that the experience aligns with the platform's existing gameplay and user habits. Currently, the map is only available until the end of February, and the gameplay isn't fully native to Fortnite. So players there are used to ranking systems and social competition, just like players on Roblox are used to progression-based games.
Yeah.
This map doesn't really tap into ranking and social comp, and that is something that may have affected engagement numbers. So this isn't a reflection on Qatar Airways at all, but it's just planning and consideration
But I
a matter
will
there.
I will back them up for a second and just say there's a parallel here to an immersive commercial, which is a commercial. It is not supposed to be persistent. There is no reason to do that. They're coming to Fortnite for a set amount of time to engage a lot of people to get their message out. And before it can become a ghost town, they pull the plug. Then they
Yeah.
can come back
Yeah.
and do that anytime. That's kind of the way that commercials work in the real world on
Yeah.
TV.
Exactly. And I mean, I love that they're in the space. I really do. Looking ahead, if they could do something different, I would have loved to see them do an integration, and have a custom space or mini game within a larger game world that would allow them to still have, all the beautiful landmarks and missions whilst benefiting from that existing player traffic and guaranteed reach and a gameplay that is native to the platform. That doesn't mean, just to be clear, like adding combat in Fortnite at all. It just means creating an experience that players are more familiar with, while still being immersive and branded. But I love that they're doing this and that they're out there. And then just kind of wrapping all of this up, is it innovative? And I do think it is, but with some nuance to it. It's innovative in the sense that an airline is using a UGC platform like Fortnite to create a branded interactive world. They've gotten
Yeah.
headlines around it too, so that's great. It's also innovative in the way that players can win real world rewards, like really, really exclusive, flight tickets through in-game actions, and connecting that digital experience directly to physical incentives. It's still fairly rare in our space, and I think it's absolutely fantastic for this kind of branded activation. And then where it could be a little bit more innovative would be maybe if they did an integration next time so that even more people, they'd reach even more
Yeah.
new players, so to speak.
Or partnered
Uh,
more deeply with some native creators that are doing interesting things there.
yeah,
But but yeah, it's pretty cool to see, and I think it looks fantastic, and it's definitely worth people's time to go check it out.
I think so too, for sure.
Aida, thank you so much for that real-time review, but let's move on to our interview with Joe Farren, consultant at Future Sports Co. Let's go. Joe Farren is an award-winning consultant. Through his company Future Sport Co., he helps some of the biggest brands in sport leverage immersive tech to grow fan and commercial value. He's led innovation teams for blue chip names across sport, media, and tech, from Manchester City and the Australian Open, across AI, virtual worlds, Web3, and sports data. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Nick. Great to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. I've been following your work in the space for a minute, and it was good to connect at SEG3 about a month ago, which was awesome. And thank you for joining us on the show. I think you've got a lot to offer our listeners. The first question I just want to start with is that so you're helping sports brands connect with fans in a very deep and immersive way. My question is, why is this important to sports brands? Like, what's the purpose and value they get out of that type of connection?
Yeah, well, I think sport as a cultural asset, right, is one of the last few remaining centers of monoculture, i.e., everyone in the same place at the same time watching the same thing. And we saw that with the Super Bowl, right? That was the greatest show on earth. And, this month we've got the Winter Olympics. It's the month of sport in February, but at the same time, it has quite a few structural weaknesses. One of them being is that aging audiences, in terms of the top tier rights holders, whether that's, in the US, MLB, or the Premier League, the average age of the linear broadcast audience is 40 plus. So immersive marketing and tech really helps unlock meeting fans where they're at and creating a new depth of experience for sports fans and for rights holders.
That's so much about future proofing, right? It's
Yeah,
like if
exactly.
you're not connecting with younger fans, your brand or your club is gonna just not be relevant, right?
Yeah, future proofing. And I think beyond just the kind of future rewards and gains for clubs, there's actually immediate commercial opportunities, right? And I think it speaks to being able to create new digital assets for teams and rights holders in an era when you can only sell so many tickets and get bums on seats. For that's really limited. Broadcast revenues are, even though increasing, that's only one asset. But I think the true promise of immersive marketing is being able to create these new assets and grow new channels that ultimately grow commercial value.
So, Joe, could you like tell us a little bit about the framework that you use when you work on these type of projects or with these brands?
Yeah, sure. So when I'm approaching any new branded projects, our rights holder, I always try and think of things in from a fan's perspective, right? And looking at that, I almost look at activations along fan verbs. So does this piece of immersive marketing tech accentuate an existing fan verb, i.e., play, socialize, compete, or does it create a net new relationship that didn't exist before between a fan and the brand? I guess an example of that would be did a project with the Australian Open called AO Art Ball, which was an NFT project a few years ago, and essentially bought a piece of digital art called your art ball and using fan data if the last point at the match at the Australian Open landed in your plot, you won extra prizes, extra utility. So that was an example of how to use blockchain and NFTs to create a new sense of digital ownership that engaged digital fans around the world in a way that hadn't been done before.
Yeah, it's just that saying about innovation. It's just because you can doesn't mean you should,
Yeah.
right? So like having the right kind of strategy going into, are we going to leverage this technology in a way that's going to benefit this brand and actually drive results? And I think a lot of the campaigns you've been involved in have driven results, but I'm constantly bumped by the fact that so many other companies across sports and different sports brands have not leveraged any of this technology yet. Why do you think that is? What's the barrier to entry there?
I think the barrier to entry comes down to a few things. One, I think it is education. And well, by that, I mean, I feel like the right people in the right places still don't know enough about, for example, using Roblox. Like they don't really understand how to leverage it and haven't necessarily seen the latest case studies or proof points. And I do think it's somewhat of a maybe a framing issue with some of these pieces. Like I still think in game whether it's gaming or Web3 or emerging tech, we still hide behind buzzwords, and buzzwords don't really explain things in pretty simple terms to the people that matter, are these rights holders, right? To use a case in point, I feel like it'd be good to get both your thoughts on this. In gaming, I think the way to convince more people brand side is to actually start reframing it as digital experiential instead of just gaming, because experiential already sits under a current budget line, right? Every sports team spends money on in-person fan zones, and whether if you're creating experience on Roblox, essentially you're creating another digital fan zone for your global fans to congregate. But if we started actually kind of explaining Roblox and gaming in the prism of terms that people in house really understand, I do think that kind of helps bridge the gap in understanding.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's this whole word game that bumps
Hmm.
these organizations because I think what they're used to is the licensing model. They're like, great, we last license and they pay us, and then that's how we kind of make this thing work. Or, the concept of having to make such a deep, ongoing game, it's such a commitment. Like, if you look at it from what you're saying, Joe, as like a temporary activation, they're doing other IRL activations. It's just a parallel to that, but you're leveraging emerging tech to do it.
I also think it's the fact that we're still calling it emerging tech and that it's UGC platforms that's new to a lot of brands, they're perceived as high risk platforms, but they're delivering really, really strong numbers. I think it's only like a matter of time before we see this hopefully included in just digital marketing because that's where we're headed, right? And that's where we want to head to.
It's a good point. I think the loyalty and conversion piece probably doesn't come automatically. I think it kind of speaks back to the need for brands to really commit to a longer term strategy in the space, right? And I think as we'll come on to chat when we talk a bit more about the Man City journey on Roblox, I think we can really see the development of that ability to show up consistently on platform over a number of years, show up without necessarily asking for something, and then actually build a really compelling mechanic that drives fans to owned and operated. And it comes down to not just showing up and expecting I'm going to convert 100% of the people on platform into own fans on day one. It comes from showing up consistently in ways fans engage and understand for a while before you can really get that conversion, I'd say.
Yeah. We've kind of talked about like what works. Let's talk a little bit about like what doesn't work. Like, what have you seen in the past of like, we don't need to single out any brands or any specific activations, but what type of mindset or what type of activation have you seen just really not perform or kind of deliver for brands?
I think anything. I think the not necessarily on the Roblox example, but probably would come under the some of the Web3 blockchain examples. Right, was the pretty shameless cash grabbing that went on. Right, you had like John Terry just jump on creating monkey JPEGs, and I think even if you see how maybe brands might show up in other immersive spaces, is if you're going into it expecting upfront monetization from day one, I think you're approaching it in the wrong way. And I don't think that's setting your strategy up for long term success on the platform if you're being seen to just being trying to extract value from an audience. And that goes from a kind of direct to fan relationship piece, but also in a broader kind of B2B brand storytelling point of view as well, right? If other brands come and see that all you're doing is showing up in the market and just trying to extract value, that doesn't reflect on very well on you as a innovative brand, which then impacts on ability to sign other partnerships in general, just PR, right?
Yeah. And then if you're looking at these spaces now, and we look at new monetization opportunities, so there's new revenue streams, right? You have digital assets and new ways for brands to monetize their IP. Can you share some real world examples of this? I know I have some things in mind too, but I would love to hear your POV on this.
Yeah, so I guess going back to that framework that I use when I'm approaching these activations, it was when we're thinking about the campaign, it was right, how can you tap into existing fan behavior as part of a Roblox activation? To wind it back, Man City have been activating on Roblox since 2022. They built their own world called Blue Moon World, which is an always on presence, kind of a digital event space, if you like, and had an early success. But we were looking to sort of see, okay, what else can we do that kind of shows up in other partner games? And we kind of thought, okay, how can we bring analog mechanic of collecting, i.e., fans collect Panini sticker books all the time. They're huge, been enduringly popular since, like the 50s. So we're
A
like, how
natural behavior.
exactly natural behavior. So how can we bring that natural sport fan behavior onto Roblox in a way that's showing up in a meaningful way for fans around the world? And I guess the results we got were pretty staggering, to be honest. We got 500 million total impressions, 50 million plus unique users. And we also tested out a new loyalty mechanic on platform, where in a 1 day test, we managed to get 6,000 new citizens sign-ups, which is the loyalty platform for Man City. So yeah, it was kind of insane to see those results in real life come through, but it came from a point of really dialing in a strategy that wasn't about trying to monetize fans up front on these platforms.
Well, awesome. Congrats. That's a dope campaign. I want to jump to a trend, and we covered it earlier on in this episode, but we were talking about how this new report came out in GamesBeat, studying data from Geek, suggesting that so many brands, not only in the sports vertical, but across all verticals, are shifting from this concept of building their own worlds into just doing integrations into other pre-existing games. Do you think that it's either or are there other opportunities as well?
Well, I think the benefit of making that initial upfront investment as a sports brand is that you actually have that own space on in the virtual world. I.e., if you want to take the decision that you want to activate a partner in there, as you would do IRL, like IRL, whether that's through a digital billboard or an actual something a bit more inherently baked into the gameplay. Am I collecting different partner items or stickers, for example? You can do that because you own that space. Whereas if you went for an integrated approach where you're essentially renting an audience and renting a spot in a high traffic game, you don't necessarily have that flexibility. But I think where we landed was almost a third way in that we could still have Blue Moon and still have that as almost a home base of where fans could come into. But then we also had that kind of guaranteed inbuilt audience of partnering with those high traffic games. So I kind of feel like almost a blended approach of having this an owned experience, but then actually partnering with other creators and games on platform, I think is almost the best of all worlds.
And you can further blend that by
Hmm.
running media on
Yeah.
platforms like Roblox, like straight up just running ads that are populating across all these, other games that are participating in that program. That sort of triple threat combo is really maximizes reach. So that's interesting.
What do you make of some of these new immersive? I think it was at CES they announced some of those new immersive formats, right? What do you make of those?
Yeah, I think it's getting better. I mean, I think rewarded video is showing really strong signs of deep engagement. I think there was something crazy like 90% completion rates, which is really high. I don't know. Aida, what do you think about the new ad tech tools that Roblox is rolling out?
Yeah, no, I think they're really working on, making the ads more sophisticated. And I think just echoing what you just said, Nick, we can really see that happening with the rewarded video ads. It's a natural way of, basically it's product placement, but in an immersive environment, and then just rewarding players from taking part in that, which then makes it native to whatever game they're in. So I think that's a really good strategy, and it's going to be interesting to see how they work on these ads. Whether it's the tiles, it's the portal ads, whatever it may be in the future, and see how they strengthen their product, because I think it can really be, like you're saying, a triple threat, but, it's a bit of you really gotta have a strategy behind it, and then a plan, whether or not it's an owned experience or an integration, knowing when the certain pulses will happen and what to use when and where. So, yeah, as long as you have a strategy, I think using all three, owned experiences, integrations, on platform ads, they're really, really great tools together too.
Yeah, I mean, I think once they start seeing the value of the deeper connection with fans and sort of the value that that offers those organizations, I think they're gonna shift mindset here and there, at least dabble in some of it because it's gonna be directly benefiting the brand at large.
What percentage, Nick? What percentage of rights holders who come to you and Anida come to you are their first conversation is how big a check can you write us versus the ones that really are looking at it as a long term fan engagement play?
That's a great question. From the sawhorse side, I would say it's fairly low. Are you talking about like from the sports vertical specifically, or from all verticals?
I guess from sport, if you, when an average conversation you'd
Mm,
have with a sports team or league, what percentage of
then
those
it's different.
conversations are like, how much can you pay us for our IP?
Yeah, I would say the majority of the clients coming to us from the sports vertical, they do have monetization top of mind. Like, a lot of them understand, some of them understand the space and they're putting that lower down on their KPIs. But I would say maybe 50% or more is like the top KPI. It's like, how do we license this IP and how do we, see that return if we're going to activate here? I don't know. Aida, what about you?
It's pretty much the same over at Chartis. These brands are starting to understand that, again, it's part of digital marketing. It's a new space, but they have to be there. And if we look at the NFL, for example, just like you mentioned earlier in the show, the traditional audience that, they're 40 plus. So these platforms really offer like an opportunity to tap into these audiences that they're missing in traditional media and so on. And a lot of them, I feel like, are understanding to that. So the sports organizations I'm speaking with at the moment and have talked to, as of late, they know that, they have to have a different mindset coming into, Roblox or Fortnite or whatever it may be. So yeah, it's pretty much the same over at our end.
Yeah, but I think it's shifting because I think that once, we're seeing all these great case studies, and
Uh,
I think the importance, like we were all mentioning, of like future proofing your brand and like connecting with younger generations and like creating those new young fans that become lifelong fans. Like once that's really happening and that's kind of a known, proven thing, I think it's something you can't avoid. I think it's just part of like the marketing funnel at large. So I'm bullish on that. But I'm curious, I want to take a broader step back for a second. I think another reason why this barrier to entry exists is because the space is so broad when you say immersive marketing, right? Like that's so many different things. It's overwhelming for these brands. You're talking about UGC gaming, AI, AR, wearables, co-creation. It's like, where do you even start? I'm curious, like, what are you most excited about across all of those spaces? And then what do you think actually holds the most value for sports brands like right now in 2026?
I think in terms of new opportunities beyond the sort of the pieces we talked about so far, I think AI, fan AI in terms of generative AI and how and the new own products that you can create with this tech, I think is super exciting.
Yeah. All the co-creation stuff like the Puma just did the new kit creation recently, right?
Yes, so this is season two of a co-creation competition that Puma have launched, and essentially it gives fans the opportunity to come and co-create a Puma kit on a Gen AI platform. So fans can come in and prompt an LLM to essentially create a new kit. And I think they've got some amazing results from this activation. From what I read, it was 40,000 fans got involved in this activation, which is it's not like a click on social, right? This is really deep engagement coming in. People want actually creating kits, voting on them. And I just think this is a super interesting bellwether where I think we are heading in the immersive marketing space this year. And the biggest do now opportunity for brands is I think mapping out essentially all your fan touch points and seeing, okay, how could this be accelerated with Gen AI to create a new, more engaging experience?
Yeah, and that's that deep time is spent with the brand, right? It's like really like diving in and co-creating and sharing. And I think I also heard that like it isn't aren't are they going to choose one of the kits and it's going to be an official kit that's used by the team?
Yeah, so it will
Did you
actually
hear?
be go into production as that kit. So you'll fan build you one fan, and essentially that kit in 2 or 3 years, I think it is, will actually be made, which is insane. Like imagine as a fan getting that opportunity to come and co-create and actually create something meaningful. I think the next step in that, from my understanding, I don't think the fan can directly earn any kind of revenue share in from that activation in the creation of the kit. But I think the next evolution of that is being able to actually own a fractional percentage of that IP
Yeah.
that you co-create, right? Because that's taking it step further from being a cool competition to being like, actually, I own a stake in this piece of IP I've co-created with the club.
Right. Like build like, participating in the business together with creators at scale. Like that's not quite here yet with brands, but we know it's coming.
So, speaking of deeper fan engagement like that, you've also mentioned and predicted that live sports broadcasts will happen inside gaming platforms. Can you explain the possible ROI there? Like, what's the measurable commercial value and how far are we from this right now?
The benefit of broadcasting, being able to actually broadcast a match inside a game, I do think allows you to create a new form of media broadcast rights that just didn't exist before. Again, that's so if you look at current examples in market, like the likes of Altcasts, Sony X, NFL, with my old company Hawkeye, that's creating a new media asset that sits alongside the traditional linear broadcast, but it opens up a new audience, a new next gen audience to engage with that asset. Then there's additional sponsor and advertising opportunities in that asset. So I think one of the biggest unlocks for sports brands and stakeholders is the ability to create these new media assets, right?
And that's a massive distro channel. You look like if you were able to live stream that into some of the top Roblox or Fortnite games, I mean, the CCU is bigger than national broadcasts. You know what I'm saying? So like if you can monetize that, then I'm sure all the sports vertical wants that, right?
For sure. And I think we will see it coming. It was interesting to see EA acquired essentially probably one of the biggest competitors to Hawkeye who do ball and player tracking in elite sport. So I think all the rumors and murmurings are that inside the EAFC app, you'll be actually able to almost toggle between game mode and watching your live team in a social environment. So very excited to see some of those initial case studies come online.
Well, we like that prediction. I hope it comes true. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your point of view. And yeah, we're excited to see what happens with the sports vertical. I said it on the show, but I'll say it again. Like, I think they're just sports brands that are not leveraging this stuff are going to be missing out. And I feel like those early movers are starting to see those results. So I predict that we just see a lot more engagement over time.
For sure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back to the show. I love talking to Joe. I really appreciate his point of view on how the sports industry is looking at the space and how they should be opening their minds and kind of being a bit more innovative and being ready to take more risks because it seems like they're leaving some money on the pitch. You know what I mean?
For sure, for sure. I mean, that was a really interesting conversation, and it's been fascinating over the years too to see how gaming and sports culture are increasingly like intersecting over time. Um, I think immersive and emerging experiences are becoming a powerful solution and creating entirely new media assets that engage fans both on-site and remotely, while also opening up new upsell opportunities. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And when you feel like you're trying to future proof your brand
Mm,
or trying to like connect more deeply with your fans, these immersive technologies are such an obvious solution for that. Yet
yeah.
there's not enough sports brands that have leaned in. It's mind-boggling to me. I think there's just too much friction and it's at this stage. But once we can start removing some of that, like this is a no-brainer for connecting more deeply with those fans and retaining them as fans.
I can't wait to see how it shifts moving forward more and more.
100.
So, what do you think next? Should we go to hit, myths, and bets this week?
Yes, let's
Yeah.
go. All right, so this is my week to cover this stuff. I'll start with my hit, and I'm sure you saw this. A lot of people saw this online, but how kids are protesting ICE raids on Roblox inside of Brookhaven. Did you see that?
I did. I did.
Brookhaven, one of the biggest role play games on Roblox. It has over or almost 80 billion visits. So it's like massive user base. And what's been going on is like some of the kids in there, they've dressed their avatars up as ICE agents and they're
Mhm.
reenacting ICE raids, which is messed up. But at the same time, you have all these other kids going in and dressing up like protesters and like mobbing the streets and like, raising these protests. And it's sort of a reflection of what's going on in the real world. It's kind of an opportunity for kids who maybe are too young to be involved in this stuff to kind of role play it.
Mhm.
Um, and it just shows that like this is like the new like space, like virtual space where young people spend their times, they can leverage that space for activism. So I
Yeah.
thought that this was kind of inspiring. I think we're just going to see more of this stuff.
I mean, it's resistance, if you ask me. That's what's
Yes.
happening.
Yeah.
It's happening in the real world. It's very, uh, everyone's affected by it, even outside of the US. But then that, what's happening IRL is being mirrored inside Roblox, and we have players that, like you're saying, are dressing up as protesters and standing up against it. That is resistance, and it's pretty cool to see.
Inspiring.
Yeah.
But moving on to my miss is all about this misunderstanding around the Google Genie 3, the Gen AI model, where you can basically just upload a picture and it will render you a 3D game world and give you a character that you can start moving around that world in. You spoke about it a little bit on last week's episode. Obviously, an amazing technology and a huge jump forward, but you see so many reactions to this being like, this is the end of the video game industry. People are just gonna anyone can just make a game just by like prompting some things in. And I think that is such an oversimplification because the reason why we like games is because they have deep game design and strategy. And these core loops and this design that goes into it, it takes a long time to create something that people are actually going to engage with. And so these experiences have no design. There's no game design. There's no core loop. You will stop playing this in 5 minutes. But then my brain starts to go to, well, this is just the early days of this. Eventually, they will have layers of game design inside of it. But then my question starts to, my brain goes to, okay, well, let's say AI can generate the most addictive game that we've ever seen, right? But it was completely made by a computer. Is that something humans are going to want to do? Or
I
is
don't
there
think
some
so.
value to a human having a point of view of making a game and trying to engage with people?
I definitely don't think that something that is generated completely by AI in the future will be enough for us as humans because we will start craving,
Human
human
connection.
interaction. Yeah,
Yeah, and a
all
point of
of that.
view. It's like,
Yeah.
this is what's happening in society. An artist steps up and says, "I made this to make you feel like this." And then I think
Yeah.
people are gonna, like, connect with that. So, curious to see. My last piece here is my bet, and I will just go out and say I think the best way for brands to advertise on UGC gaming platforms is yet to be seen. I think the article that just, kind of explored the fact that integrations are better than owned experiences is also an oversimplification. I think there is deep value to brands figuring out new forms of keeping always on engagement with their communities inside these platforms. I still think it's very much the early days of this space, and I'm really inspired by all the brands who are pioneering, who are experimenting and trying out new things in this space and not just copying what another brand did that got more impressions.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. I want to dive deeper into that with you at some point. But yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see.
Yep, 100%. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And Aida, who do we have next week?
Well, we have a really exciting guest next week that we'll be talking to, but I'm going to leave it at that for now. But I'm really looking forward to that conversation. And, listeners, make sure to like and follow so that we can keep bringing you the latest on immersive marketing. I said it last week and I'll say it again. Edward, please read us out.
And that was Brands in Play. Thank you for joining the podcast where we explore immersive marketing and the people who are leading it. Co-hosted by Nick Hill and Aida Andersson, our show today was produced and edited by myself, Edward Regu, alongside our creative producer, Dr. Giovanni Casimiro. Be sure to join us every week for brand new episodes.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views, policies, or positions of host employers. The information shared during this podcast is based on personal experience and publicly available information and is intended for informational purposes only. Any references to specific platforms, companies, or partnerships are made in a personal capacity and do not imply endorsement, partnership, or official association with any organization mentioned.